Then my first day back to work, I was asked to jump on a flight 2 hours, then be in a car for 6 hours for an offsite. Of course, part of that is saying yes to not just being a mom going back to work, to try to be relevant, add value, not have excuses, but also a mom who's literally carrying 2 loads of milk through customs, hoping they will confiscate, pumping in a car in an emerging market where you're worried about the hygiene and there's no access to freezers, and the mental load of all of that. And added to it, I did my master's, I did clinical hours, and I just did a lot of it silently because I was raised to believe that's a virtue, that everyone has suffering. Every household has a difficult story to tell. I make a big deal. But in reality, by being silent, I think it's also blurring a boundary to not have advocated to say, maybe that's too much. Maybe my first day back to work shouldn't be that. There's other ways to ramp up, and that's not in my interest. And it doesn't mean that I'm any less valuable. It doesn't mean that I'm any less committed. But the dance between silence and advocating for our own boundary, even as a therapist, I think that's a lesson that motherhood really brought the mirror straight up to my face.
Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Make It Work podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Wong, and today I have a very unique guest. I have Jen Loong-Goodwin here, and she's someone I actually recently found on Instagram. And what she posts on is really about breaking through cultural kind of trauma, as well as tips for working moms that really resonate. She's super honest, super authentic in what she shares. And I thought that the story would really resonate with our listeners here. So just a quick introduction. Jen Loong-Goodwin knows the working mom juggle from the inside out. As a venture capital professional by day and a clinical therapist by night, she founded LifeLoong Therapy after years in high-performing corporate environments and time spent sitting with the clients. Those environments had slightly worn down. She believes moms can benefit from building a portfolio career, which is something that I really believe in too. So another area that we are going to talk more about. And the experiences working across 6 countries and growing up in Hong Kong, China, and Canada. As a content creator, she talks about being honest about the working mom struggle and talks about identity, exhaustion, guilt, and juggling it all. She also has a cartoon channel called Long Tales, which teaches bilingual episodes to get kids excited about Chinese culture and find belonging. So all these will be shared in the show notes at the end of our episode. And let's welcome Jen to the conversation. Hi,
Thank
Jen.
you.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a bit about yourself, what life looks like for you, what brought you to Singapore.
Yeah, I'm about 2 years into my motherhood journey, so have a very high energy toddler boy. And he's a mixed race between British and also Canadian Chinese. We came to Singapore about 4 years ago now, also with my work. And we can't think of being anywhere else to raise our family. And we really enjoy, and I really enjoy the moms I've gotten to meet being based here. Yeah.
Great. I'm so glad that you found Singapore home and that you really enjoy having your family with you.
Yeah.
What is something, when you think about your time transitioning to a mom, what were some of the really difficult things that you experienced and how did you get through them?
Yeah, maybe 3 things come to mind. I think first is I was never really a person who thought I would be a mom. I grew up with a very difficult childhood. I had an estranged relationship with my parents. And so I thought, who am I to know what it's like to parent and what to pass on? I'm the least qualified person because of the abuse and a lot of the trauma that I went through. And really, it came down to my husband, if anything, believing that actually a person who's gone through a lot, in fact, lay the best foundation for knowing what not to do. And I think that really became my compass and gave me the courage. But it really took until the child arriving and then seeing myself in moments of test to really believe and build that self-trust. And now I do that with a lot of my mom clients, also with my therapy business, that just because you had a certain past does not prescribe you a certain kind of presence in how you parent. Those 2 things don't have to be correlated with the right tools and the right support. I think the second story that comes to mind was about depression. I was deep in it for about 6 months. During this time, I don't recommend it, but I was also full-time job, completing my master's. I flew around quite a bit with my day job. Of course, all the joys of breast pumping and feeding, And in my night hustle as a therapist, I was also clocking clinical hours. And so on that full plate, whilst coping with postpartum depression, which is something that I post about, that was a lot. And through the right support, the right tools, I was able to navigate through it. But when you think about the motherhood juggling, I didn't think I would be. The irony that even the therapist is juggling postpartum depression, even though I was in clinic rooms creating space to support moms going through that. Yeah.
Wow. What did you do to help yourself out of it? Was there that kind of split identity of you thinking that you have all the tools and yet you're still in that situation?
Yeah.
How you figure that out?
The big part to sadness is that this emotion needs to flow clinically. So it needs the tears, it needs the sweat. There's a movement that shifts it. And unfortunately, sat in bed or staying stationary in one position does not shift it. And this is something where I work with my clients, and I really have to practice what I preach to let it shift. It's okay to cry and regulate by way of meditation to ground myself back. Of course, I can't underscore the village of a support system that I have between my helper, my husband, really strong community of moms. Those really anchored me to let me know that I'm doing all right. Yeah. I think thirdly is a lot of the books and tools and frameworks that I work with my clients with. I rest in knowing that 1 in 5 moms go through this, and it has nothing to do with their disposition, something's wrong with them, or that they're bad. It has nothing. You could have the most help in the world and you could still feel this dark cloud. And it's just a medical condition. In time, the right resources can get you through.
So good. Thank you. And so if you could go back in time to meet the Jen before becoming a mom, what would you tell her to do?
Yeah. I think starting with your past does not prescribe your present. You can heal and parent at the same time. Ideally, heal first and then parent. But for those of us who don't have the luxury of choice, and then perhaps you don't have the pressure cooker to really get into the work, healing while parenting is something that I purpose about. It's doable. It takes a lot of nervous system regulation, self-awareness, and trust from your community, but it's totally doable. So just because you didn't experience a certain kind of parenting growing up may not mean that this experience is triggering, may not mean that this experience is a really ugly mirror to those negative memories. We can actually create totally new chapters and find self-trust and love in that process.
You talk about nervous system regulation. What is something simple that we could do today?
Yeah. Breath. I think that it's actually the cheapest, most underrated skill. And oftentimes, especially as parents, we talk about tantrums, meltdowns, big emotions that our kids bring. Because a big part of it is their amygdala. It's just not developed. In reality, we can't regulate someone else's nervous system if we don't first regulate our own. And what I find the most effective is just the box breath, where we inhale for 4, hold, and then exhale for 6 or however long you feel like you can. And doing that a couple of rounds. What I always tell clients is there's science behind it. Yeah. The science is when we quicken our breath, like it's actually helping us pump blood through our veins so then we can run away from the lion, which is what our brain is wired for. It's how do we survive hunter-gatherer days. So we could talk about AI, but this machine up here is quite outdated, unfortunately. And so when we purposely elongate the exhale, we're literally signaling to the nervous system, no lion here, even though maybe there's a toddler that's having a meltdown, we can manage it. It's not a lion, and we're shrinking our minds to be able to slow down and calm the heart rate, to remove the blood away from our limbs and really go towards mindfulness. Yeah.
Interesting. I heard somewhere that even the Marines do box breathing. They're really high stress situations.
Yeah. And sometimes clients ask, Jen, surely there's something a bit more exciting. Is that it? That is it. That is it. It's cheap. It's always available. It never powers off even when we sleep, but it's so effective. And again, I think to bring back to the context of parents, can't regulate anyone's nervous system without first anchoring on.
So good. All right. Just saying you do there. So how does it look like between you and your spouse nowadays in making it work? You guys work busy careers, dual career couple. Do you have a hack?
Yeah. I think the most honest thing I could say to this question is it's always an iteration. No couple knows it and has it figured out. And I see this in my clients. I know this intimately. We have good seasons. We have seasons that are work in progress. But where we're at this moment, we are dual income households. So we actually both fly away quite a bit for work, does it a bit. And so to that extent, the logistics of being able to figure out not flying at the same time has been something we've been trying to index. We wanted to make sure that our son always had a primary caretaker who's around. And sometimes it's easier to coordinate and boundaries to have to ask for. Easier said than done. I think as it pertains to one of the reasons why I married my husband is that he's someone who grew up in a really loving and anchored family structure. The kind of thing you watch on Hallmark movies and you're like, does that really exist? But I really wanted that to be modeled and accessible to my son, to know that it doesn't have to just be a Hollywood movie. And so I married someone who would be super hands-on, who would show up every night for bedtime routine. Not because it's an obligation, but I think a big part of him really gets joy in having those dad moments in person. Yeah.
So what are your non-negotiables as a couple? Like, how do you all still find time for each other? And what do you particularly want to model?
Yeah, I think the nervous system regulation piece is massive. We try not to have the difficult emotional conversation in front of our child. And he's at an age that's too young to really understand. Oftentimes, clinically, I see that when the parents fight or even have any kind of conflict, the child thinks is their fault, naturally. And it may have nothing to do with that, but that's the point of view of the child. At some point, as they get more emotional vocabulary, then they could move to a place to understand the nuances of the relationship. But at this moment in time, that's our non-negotiable, that we keep these adult emotional conversations. I think we try to create time once a month. We're pretty committed to at least having day night. I know some couples do more than that, but for us, that cadence, I think, is what we can organize around. And we like the element of surprise. So we don't ever tell each other what we're organizing. And that's the part of that adrenaline. Yeah. And we leave clues.
Oh my goodness.
How to
Give me
dress
an
up.
example of like something that was really fun or that was on the
Yeah, I think there's one tonight. And that one I was told is dress code between black and red. I have a feeling it has something to do with dance. Neither of us is dancing. Neither of us is dancers, so it'll be totally out of comfort zone. But I can also get a bit of that chemistry, a bit of that awkward. Yeah, but we'll see.
In her case, if you find something,
Yeah,
and that's all you know, the dress code.
yeah.
So fun. Okay, I'm excited to see if it appears on IG.
Yeah, I'm sure it would.
Okay. So looking back, Jen, is there anything that you would do differently or anything you forgive yourself for?
Yeah, I think we talked about the silence piece. Growing up Asian, we have this desire, but also cultural codes to be silent. And I think in Chinese, we even say 吃苦, right? You literally eat bitter as if it's one of the nutrients that's good for you in life.
I did.
And do it as a daily practice, like a daily need. And I did a lot of that in my early motherhood chapter, especially with the postpartum, but even first day back to work with mat leave. I guess even before that, with mat leave, there was a big piece of negotiation and advocating for myself in a room that may not be so welcoming to that conversation. Then before coming back to work, I had the silent expectation I needed as much breast milk as I possibly produce in order for me to fly around and do a job that's on the road. And so our electricity bill was through the roof because we had 3 freezers. But I was very quiet about it. I just diligently pumped, drank a lot of water to just have literally, I can't remember, it was 6 to 9 months of inventory. Then when I went back to work,
That is a lot. It was only every 2 hours. Every hour.
my trick was just water. I drank maybe 4 or 5 liters a day. The water would just created a lot of yields. Hot tip. And then on my first day back to work, I was asked to jump on a flight 2 hours, then be in a car for 6 hours one way to travel to this destination for an offsite where I was the only person who was traveling and everyone else was within the same surrounding. Of course, as part of that is saying yes to not just being a mom going back to work, to try to be relevant, add value, not have excuses, but also a mom who is literally carrying 2 loads of milk through customs, hoping they would confiscate, pumping in a car in an emerging market where you worry about the hygiene and there's no access to freezers, and the mental load of all of that. And then added to it, I did my master's, I did clinical hours, and I just did a lot of it silently because I was raised to believe that's a virtue, that everyone has suffering. Every household has a difficult story to tell. Why make a big deal? But in reality, by being silent, I think it's also blurring a boundary to not have advocated to say, maybe that's too much. Maybe my first day back to work shouldn't be that. There's other ways to ramp up, and that's not in my interest. And it doesn't mean that I'm any less valuable. It doesn't mean that I'm any less committed. But the dance between silence and advocating for our own boundary, even as a therapist, I think that's a lesson that motherhood really brought the mirror straight up to my face.
Wow, wow. I can't imagine going back to work, which I'm very soon and having to travel already. Oh, wow, yeah.
And I think there were, along the way, it's not all negative. There were confiscated milk. There were long haul flights where there's no freezer on board. And so my hard work of the whole week, I'm just crossing my fingers it doesn't melt. But along the way, there are extremely helpful air hostesses who have gone through that journey themselves. There are passengers who see those bags you're carrying that they'll offer help. There's a lot of kindness also. But I often think that truly is the Olympics. It's not just the mental load of going back to work and juggling what you're juggling, but the physical aspect of carrying the pumps, the milk, the ice blocks, and the storage facilities, all the while looking like it's graceful and effortless.
Wow, yeah, kudos to you. Even as I think about my own plan for return to like pumping and everything, it's just a cognitive kind of load that makes it all feel all too much.
Yeah.
With two young kids as well and wanting to kind of hit the ground running at the same time, it's just, I feel like I need to breathe.
We could do some box rides.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing too, is in silences, of course, a lot of this is done behind closed doors. Women don't breast pump. And I actually made it a point to pump in meetings, to pump in group settings, to pump in car rides where my manager was there. Because a part of it is visibly showing that this doesn't just magically happen, that the end-to-end process for one pump and the coordination and making sure you're pouring the milk in the car and not spilling and making a big mess and then transferring it to the bags and making sure that the ice was cracked in a way that actually does its job and physically carrying. I think so much of the content and the stories I try to create on socials is to model this doesn't have to be silent. This is actually what most women are doing at work. I'm by far not the only working that does it. To model it, to give it representation, I hope it normalizes and then opens doors to real conversations in the workplace about what it is that it takes mentally, physically for everyone to return to work.
That must have been so powerful to actually show people, would be men, what it takes to actually produce milk or even just get back to doing the same thing as they're doing whilst jumping all these other things behind.
Yeah. And then you add into also the more visible layer, like the visible labor component that the mums are sat in boardroom meetings critiquing a P&L, but in the same breath and possibly in the next thought is thinking about who is bringing my son to a play date? Did I organize a play date? Where is it? What snack do I need to put? Is there enough nutrients in the set snack? Who are the children that he's playing with? Do they get along? Or what dynamic do I need to know? And all that maybe is in one breath within 5 minutes. And again, this is not unique to me. Most moms and a lot of my clients, they all shoulder this. But I think the call to question is, how do we do it less silently? So then there's communal acceptance that this is actually a shared pain, and then maybe collectively we can find some refuge.
I really want to dig into this, Jen. This piece of that silence of blurring the boundaries is something that obviously has really resonated and struck a chord with a lot of people as a mass minutes of views. Why do you think it resonates so much? And is there something small that we can do today as working moms to be a bit less silent?
I think a lot about the penalty for not being silent, the penalty of even being a mom at work who has other interests, who has a portfolio career. This penalty where managers have told me, don't do so many things. You come across as someone who's not focused, who's not excellent in your craft, because excellence to this person, he said, it doesn't come to someone who's heterogeneous. So my example is like Elon Musk is doing it. But he also doesn't have children to breastfeed and kind of take. So it was in a different bucket. But the penalty of culturally, talk about 吃苦, you just eat it. You don't. In Chinese, we also have another saying, 家家自己扫自己门前雪. You just sweep your own snow in front of your own household. You don't make a big deal. And generationally, we also don't talk a lot about the pain and the cultural suffering from grandparents to mums and mums to children. And so this collective culture around silence, I think it's because there's a big penalty. And maybe for the listeners at home, maybe there is personal penalty to what it meant, where we learned it's better off to just be quiet and hush hush, but to choose differently. I think it doesn't need to be so vocal to create content for millions of people to feel seen. It can just start with having truly raw and candid conversation with other moms, modeling that it's okay to have these moments that break down, to have mastitis and work, and what do you do about that? And to normalize these conversations. And then the more and more I believe them, people will have permission to be a bit louder, just like there was a permission issue for them to have learned to be quiet to begin with.
Giving ourselves that permission, have these conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe block out a calendar, say,
Yeah.
to pick up the kid.
Yeah. And perhaps even if you're transit at the airport, you see a mum who is struggling. At the playground, you do see a mum with 3 kids who's just about to pull her hair, to have that permission to go by and not to give advice, but just to say, hey, I see you. I'm here if you want to chat. I think that breaks the silence much more than normal ones, is it?
I like that. Yeah. It's not even just about trying to show your flaws, what it means, but just seeing your peer in another mom to say, hey, I see you. And I guess that's what the flower was about. The flower that they gave to me before the recording. That was really sweet of me, but thank you. And just on my birthday too.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it's the Gratitude Lucas platform. These shows that you're doing, it normalizes all of the tapestry of a mother's journey. And every mum is different, every child is different. So we thank you also for unsilencing this very cultural habit of being women in an Asian heritage. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that it's like a learned kind of obedience, I suppose, to authority that makes it even harder to sort of just be a mom in the open.
Being a mother is really hard now. Being a mum, healing while parenting, possibly having grown up in tiger parenting, and then choosing a different philosophy and different path. That was one of the visions of why when I started creating content more diligently is I scrolled on my feed. I just couldn't find working mums who look like me. And I wondered why. Because I looked around most of my girlfriends. Most of them are senior in their careers. They're lawyers, consultants, tech professionals. Where is that void? Even though those are the only people I know. And so I wanted to create content that could give representation to it. And a big part of it, I think, is talking about the cultural weight. Now, of course, I'm not naive to think our parents just did the best mostly. And oftentimes I explore these themes with my clients is that if they were limited in their resources and their information, maybe that is the best. And their best may not be meeting our needs, but maybe that's their best. To choose differently, knowing those limitations, knowing now we have all of these apps and parenting philosophies and influencers who also model to you what that could look like, but also parenting communities. And we just have a lot more resource to just choose differently. And so the theme around healing while parenting, I'm really passionate about that. And you're now starting to see families choosing a different course. And I think I don't want to underscore the courage, discipline, and just love that it takes for a woman to choose that path.
Wow. Jen, you're obviously a hyperachiever and very type A person. Yeah, I was looking at all your content. You have a podcast, you have a video show, you have obviously your IG account, and you're working full time with a kid, traveling. So for sure, hyperachiever, that's me. Yeah, someone who can get. What does a vision of work look like for you right now?
Yeah. There's one body of work that I work with my clients around is, what if your career choice is just one big trauma response? And I'm guilty of it too. Why do I need to do so much? Why do I feel so fulfilled doing so much?
Yes.
And what is it about my nervous system finding this familiar? And so I have a workbook. If any listener is interested, I could check out the link in the show notes.
Yes.
You could download it and understand, even in this high achiever archetype, maybe it's actually more about a survival for safety. And in the workbook, it was 4 different types and 4 different needs for safety. And so my need for safety is control. Needing to do more allows me to do that. But I think the key difference is earlier in my career, I'm just doing more out of the fear that I'm not enough. And so the control could be a way to do that. Hesitating and withdrawing yourself could be a way to do that. And there are other types. But the shift is you could still want to create, but can we create from a place of abundance? And I have nothing to prove. I already have infinite unconditional love for my family that I've created. I have nothing to prove. And I could still create, that comes from not fear, but abundance. And when I think of it's not actually just even doing more, I want to model to my son that you could just live fuller. And in that full expression, maybe you do have different identities, you do have different passions, you do have different projects, not because you need to do them, but they're just a fuller expression of my DNA and my purpose. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty deep. So shifting from the mindset of, at least for you, identified it as need for control to a kind of abundance or a point of realizing that you already have everything you need. That's it.
And I'm really grateful for motherhood to have really filled that void. And again, we don't raise children to fill voids. That's not the intention, but it's like a really pleasant side effect in my case where I feel utterly whole. Any unmet need for love, for acceptance, identity, belonging that I didn't get in my childhood, I have that 10 times in this family structure now. And so from this place of whole to then create off of that, I'm much more uninhibited. It's less about control because I already feel safe at home and as a person. Yeah.
Right. Do you still feel you have tendencies of wanting to check off many things? Is that a fourth part of you?
Yeah. Less about to prove anything, less about because I feel like I'm not whatever. It's genuinely because I've just so much capacity to be. I have so much love and creativity to share. And these are the vehicles I find interesting to represent that and give it a name. And I think that shift, I really credit it to motherhood. And I hope other moms can also feel that abundance, even though we're so tired, we're sleep deprived, we're emotionally drained on school holidays. But on the flip side of that same coin is also knowing you genuinely have unconditional love in your back of your court. And from that base, we genuinely can create anything infinitely and find it from abundance. Yeah.
Wow. Can we talk a little bit about tech? Let me say tech. So I noticed that you use tech in producing a lot of your content, your podcasts, your videos. If it's AI, it's helping you. So how does it look like for you to use it to manage your mental load?
Yeah, I definitely can't do so many different things under my fingers and so many pots without AI, which is also why it's so exciting to parent now in 2026 with the help of AI. I think it's a few folds. On the household management piece, I use an app called Family Wall. I'm not sponsored, but I swear by it, whether it's from recipe planning to managing our resources and support at home, organizing the different calendars, expenses, and amends. Claude is like my chief of staff, and I know that everyone says that. But for me, how that actually looks like is all the way down to parenting scripts. If I feel dysregulated in these circumstances, we don't almost have even the cognitive capability to think in that moment. I just have these saved as favorite photos on my phone, and I can immediately say that. I created a self-affirmation script for my son, which then we do that on a nightly basis when we do bedtime routine to really build a habit to improve self-worth, create stories where he's in it. Unfortunately, fortunately, there's not much mixed kids representation in literature. And so instead of waiting for somebody to create it, we could use AI, put him as the protagonist, put a few lessons where he needs to learn. And now he's the center of that story and he knows his name is also said in it. How else?
I'm curious about the story. If you say, is it video? Is it pictures that you print out?
So Google Gemini has a storybook function. And I have a script to that. You could change a few variables and it could create the story. So you could tell it exactly, my son looks like this kind of grade level, language, this is the lesson, mommy looks like this, daddy looks like this, these are his best friends. And then you could create that ebook already. And of course, you can even go one step further to print that. Same goes for, I think, the cultural piece. So one big reason in me creating Long Tails, the Chinese cartoons, is I just couldn't find it. And instead of waiting for Pixar to create them, I could use AI. So just script, create the videos, create the soundtracks, make sure that the lesson and the storyline is exciting for kids ages 3 to 8, has humor that they find funny, not what parents find funny, and then put it all together, translate it into Mandarin, Cantonese, and if I wanted to, I could even use AI to create cultural assets like coloring pages, things that they could cut and fold and do origami. It's all AI. That before, it would take me months to do one episode. Now, maybe 3-4 hours. And we have a full 6-minute, 7-minute cartoon episode.
Amazing. Wow. Well, this is, yeah. I mean, hearing about it
These
makes
are
me
so-
excited. Yeah.
How would you want to create?
Yeah, I think that storybook thing would be something that we want to check out. I didn't know when they had this function.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
There's a prompt that I could share with you.
yeah. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. And anything else that helps you with your work, perhaps?
Yeah, I think I also lean on again, Claude, just in terms of time management, being critical. I'm someone who the holy grail is being able to do bedtime routines, school pickups. I think, or maybe to take a step back, if you think of a working mom calendar, 9 to 5, yeah, and then plus the maybe 8 to 9 or 7 to 9 beforehand till you're getting ready of a child for school. That time is hard quality time. It's usually battleground, lots of negotiation, emotions are high. And so then 9 to 5, you're also already excluded from your child's life. Really, we only just get whatever the after school hours are until the moment that they go to bed. And if I carried my child for 9 months just to have, it feels not quite the deal that what I signed up for or what has been advertised for moms who also need to work. And so I think leaning on AI to really optimize and also ultimately improve my quality of output with work so that I can keep that a lot of time as a holy grail. And hopefully those are the memories that he also can think back to know that Mongi tried her best to be there every day.
Sounds so good. Yeah, I love this. And this really sits so well with kind of what Make It Work's about, where we have the idea of working moms who really want to lean into both that identity of being ambitious at work, but also being a really present parent that maybe many of us didn't have growing up. So with AI, it sounds, as much as there's so much fear around the work side, that there's also so much potential, right? To be a better worker, to be a better parent, and we lean into both as much as possible as well.
Yeah. And of course, there's the piece around raising humans who will live in a world where AI is extremely intimate. But that's probably a different episode, different conversation. But just as a partner to parenting, I have clients who even go into bathrooms and closets to talk to AI, to say, I'm feeling really dysregulated. I'm struggling. My child is shouting. I'm just out of my marbles as to what else to say. Our parents didn't have these tools. And if they then leaned on the feather duster, the book, the belt, and whatever other discipline device, perhaps AI is just a different kind of companion. And ultimately, I think what's relevant for working moms is if it elevates the quality of our output, reduces the amount of time that it takes to produce it, increases the consistency so then the quality is also standardized, isn't the best gift that it just gives us a bit more time to spend with the most important assets of our lives, which I hope is our children.
What I struggle with is actually devoting that time to learn. Do you practice slotting? They say, okay, you spend half an hour a day every, I don't know if I can afford it, 1.5 an hour a day. Like, have you learned?
Yeah, I'm really disciplined about my in-between time. So in-between time could be I'm just sat in a grab. It could be I'm just in the bathroom. It could be the 10 minutes I'm waiting for a contact to arrive to a meeting. All of those in-between times, they add up to significant time in the day. In our household, I was never raised to watch TV. And so nighttime is at least 3-4 hours. That's super productive and meaningful time for me to learn and create and do something I like. And so all of that added up, those are the moments where I'm editing scripts, I'm doing reels, I'm adjusting the look, I'm captioning, I'm commenting, I'm creating my next lead magnet. But again, I think it's the shift from maybe in my 20s, that sounds like anxiety. That sounds like to-do list that I need to check. But now it's really shifting to I get to abundantly do all these things. I get to even play with AI in my grab ride so that I'm tinkering with different concepts. Parents never had that opportunity. I think being disciplined and really checking in that we get to create and not because we're creating, we're FOMO. Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, wrapping it up a little bit, Jen. What do you hope your kids learn from you in juggling and navigating work and motherhood?
Yeah. The first, maybe 3 things. The first that comes to mind is just the luxury of choice. We'll go through education and hopefully we create a loving home environment ultimately because you have a choice to choose what fits. And as parent, I have no agenda to pass down or inscribe one particular choice over the other. I respect whatever choice they have, but to feel confident in choosing, proud to choose. If they want a portfolio career approach, you can. I think that luxury of choice is underscored. 2 is I think about what makes the best kind of human, especially in the AI world. I think it's really the person who knows themselves because unfortunately no prompt can help you understand yourself better than yourself. And so my job as a parent is to make sure he has the opportunities, the stress moments, the love, the foundation to really believe and know himself, starting with these self-affirmations that we do every night before bed. And maybe thirdly, that parenting actually brings a lot of purpose and joy and healing. And I suppose back in the hunter and gatherer days, we don't procreate because we want that. We procreate just because we need extra hands to like help to hunt and farm and do all that fun stuff. But now, again, if we get to choose, I'm lucky enough to bring little human into the world. It's actually, for me, been one of the most joyful experiences that I'm still on, that I hope he also gets a glimpse of it for himself if he chooses to.
So good. Yeah. And in your current season as a working mom, what is something that you are in the thick of figuring out right now?
Yeah, thick of it. I think I'm the season of figuring out what's next with my career life in terms of industry, role, culture, and designing around something and somewhere and a group of people who also fits with my worldview, portfolio approach, that I do have life outside of my quote unquote day job and being celebrated for it, extracted for the strengths. I think oftentimes, yeah, and I'm guilty of it as well, that us working moms, again, feel like it's a place of lack. I have to fit in because otherwise what else am I going to do? I'm already discounted because I'm not in the office as much. I have all these requirements about leave and picking up our kids from. But if you remove all those limitations, I read a stat that most women hit their creative peak between 45 to 55 years old. That most millionaires in Asia are also hit at late 40s. So we're actually right on time. Now's the peak to show up. And how do we design our careers, our jobs, the people that we work with who could really support us doing our best work? And I think that those are the questions I really deep in thought about of late. Yeah.
Wow. Was there something that you felt had changed to start looking at it in a different way? Or you feel like a season had passed? Was it your kids being older that gave you more time and space to think about it? Like,
Yeah.
with AI, yeah.
We're having this conversation in the context of Singapore, where we're so privileged to have the social fabric, infrastructure, to have help. There's no way I could be doing what I'm doing. And I'm very candid and honest without the support systems we have. So I think that's one. Two is just limited time. The less time I have with my son, the more diligent I am about how I am using that time away. And sometimes my husband and I look at each other, well, what are we doing before kids?
How do you spend
All those hours. What was that about? Like, where was I? I can't really pick out specific moments. Oh, yeah, I watch shows. What of those actually add to my life, our life, and the collective community's life? And so it's funny, the less time you have, I think naturally, you're just much more resourceful. And from that if I only have this finite number of hours in the day where I'm not with him, I want to make sure that I'm living the most full, authentic way to bring those limited hours to good use for hopefully the communities that I serve. And so I think those two ingredients pair together. And yeah, AI can accelerate and buy you even more time in that sense. But then this desire for portfolio approach, multiple identities, maybe those seeds were always there before. I just never had the urgency to turn the new page and say, now's the season.
Yeah, I asked this because a lot of us in the thick of, having young children feel like, okay, this is where I need to just keep my head down and then focus on maybe being mom and just doing my work, maybe not asking for more, raising my head for more, or even, I can't even think about new hobbies, stuff like that. But then there's you. So what would you say to the mom in that situation?
I don't think more is the priority to index for. Full seems like a better word. And my full versus the next person's full could feel different. But I think our children seeing the adults modeling full, living joyfully because of they reach bounds and rewards to know that they themselves can do it. It's almost removing their limiting beliefs so they grow up knowing, well, I also deserve and confident to get after a full life. And if that means creating a bit more discipline with those in between time, if that means needing for help, delegating, allocating resources more, then those becomes almost the next step. So I think fundamentally is, as moms, again, a lot of my clients come through the door saying this is, my happiness is my child. If he's happy, she's happy, I'm happy. But what happened to our own joy. And if we index for that, surely our entire family and community benefits.
Good. Thank you. Do you have anything else that you feel you like to say?
I think the last theme is around mixed-raced families. And more we see this, more and more, especially in metropolis like Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, and even San Francisco, New York, LA. You see these structures more. Yeah. And it actually requires really deliberate conversations for two different parenting schemes to come together to create new. But in that is also how do we create the norm for children to feel like they belong, whether visually, maybe even down to customs, food choices, names, accents. The world will make them feel very othered. And I think I don't have yet a structure or framework other than clients come in and we discuss this. I create some content around this in my own journey and figure out what does belonging look like for a mixed race child and for mixed race families to create new rules, new cultural customs that has never been done before. Yeah.
Wow. If anyone has thoughts, feel free to reach out to Jen or check out all the amazing content that she's building. All right, so mystery question. So the question is,
what is one belief that you have about motherhood that you will have to unlearn in order to become healthier and happier?
I think the very piece of how we are rewarded as career women is most likely because we are disciplined, we hustle, we don't take no for an answer, we always beat the door down, and we put in the hours. And then, of course, we're going to get the promotion and we're going to get the visibility and the reward. That completely flips its head in motherhood. Just because you clock in the hours doesn't make you necessarily any closer to your child. Just because you always say that you don't take no for an answer might actually damage the connection. So all of these things we've learned, that's what a successful woman at work looks like, completely does not work in motherhood. And then compound that, the very period we're expected to do our best work in age coincides the very same years we're biologically productive. And we're somehow supposed to put feet on both pedals to go as fast as possible. And so all that is to say, maybe the shift is the very design of what we were rewarded as women at work. There's not the same criteria set for what hopefully will reward us to become good and connected mothers. I think it's decoupling from some of those beliefs and knowing that what helps me to be successful at work may not help me to be successful as a mom. And the ultimate performance review, if I'll ever get one, is just when my child is old enough to have a conversation, to be candid about what were the needs that I met, what were the needs that I missed, and were there shared loving memories that made us feel like we were a mother-son unit. But barring that, it's a whole mystery box that who knows if we're on the right track.
On that note, I remember a guest that she did share about having these conversations with her children who are a bit older, maybe in primary school, elementary age. And she says that she asks them regularly about feedback on what they had about her parenting. Yeah. And it can be something as simple as like, oh, I wish you made more blueberry pancake scoops. And then, that's something that if you love, something we enjoy.
For sure.
Yeah, till that day.
It's a two-way conversation, right? We want to raise them to be responsible, articulate, emotionally aware adults, but are we giving them opportunities to do so? Without, of course, passing on the anxiety, the people-pleasing. Someone could also learn to grow up in these questions and be like, oh, I always need to ask for feedback. Like all things parenting, it's probably good in moderation in some way.
That's right. Yes, never too gentle or too harsh a parent, right?
Who knows? Who knows?
All right. Jen, how about the question that you have for the guest?
I think my question is, what is one thing you practice regularly that is quite contrarian, but makes you a different kind of mom?
Very cool. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Some really deep thoughts here that I know really resonate, and actually some really practical things as well that you've shared. So really appreciate it. And thank you again for coming on.
And most importantly, happy birthday for doing this episode.
Thank you.
On your birthday.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.